Hello! In this short, or maybe not so short, movie, I would like to show you the basics of the medieval system by the Polish company Taktyka and Strategia. They released a couple of games about medieval age battle since Hastings 1966 till Grunwald 4010. And there's a lot of these games. The rules are not very complicated, at last in my opinion, but I hope this movie will help you to understand the basics of these rules. I would like to show them by playing a small number of the situations on the board, not any particular scenario from any game, but the small situations that will allow me to show you all the important things about this system. Let's start with the basics. A game is divided into turns, and each turn is divided into phases. There are 9 phases. First phase is movement of the cavalry of the player A. Then we have attack of the cavalry of the player A. Then we have movement of the infantry and artillery of the player A, and attack of the infantry of the player A. Next we have 4 similar phases about player B, and the phase 9, movement of the morale counter. I will play each of these phases, but first let's look at the counters. We have a couple of counters here. We're gonna start with phase 1, movement of the cavalry. So let's focus on the cavalry counters first. Each counter has icon that shows what kind of unit we have here. Here we have a cavalry, since it's a horseman. It has strength. Each unit has strength 2 or strength 1. Movement factor. This means unit has 7 movement points. And armor factor. This shows how well armed is this unit. As you may see, this unit has armor factor 2, which makes it the strongest possible unit on the board. Okay, let's start with the movement. Each unit moves by spending their movement points, but while movement of the infantry is pretty easy, then movement of the cavalry can be tricky. Why? I'm gonna show you. Let's start with the moving Polish cavalry units. One more thing. Each unit has a zone of control. This zone of control covers 3 front hexes of the unit. When unit enters enemy zone of control, it has to stop instantly. It can't move anymore. It has to stop its movement right now. The zone of control doesn't cover 3 back hexes. Okay, let's say that Poles want to move their units. For example, let's start with this cavalry unit. It has 8 movement points, so it can move 1, 2, 3, 4, and here it has to stop because it entered enemy zone of control. That would be the simplest way to move. But as you know, units like to change their facing and so on. Cavalry may change its facing by spending 1 point and turning here, spending 1 more point, and moving here, and so. But when cavalry starts moving, changing its facing gets complicated. For example, a cavalry unit may change its facing by one side per every 2 hexes. To make it, I know it may sound complicated, but let's show how it works. So let's say this unit starts moving. It moves 1, 2, and now, since it's crossed 2 hexes, it may change its facing once. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If it's not moving, so at the start of the movement phase, before the movement, unit may change its facing too. So let's assume this unit wasn't moving this turn, so it's start its movement, and it cannot, and it can't, and it can change its facing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, so on. If unit moved only 1 hex, it may change its facing as much as it's like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. But if unit moved 2 or more hexes, it may change only once per hex. Another thing which is highly connected with the movement is charge factor. Each cavalry unit has its basis charge factor as 0, but once unit starts its movement, this charge factor increases. By each hex, unit cross in the straight line. So, for example, this unit moves 1, and it gets charge factor 1. It moves 2, it gets charge factor 2. But charge factor may never be bigger than more than 1 by the unit's armor factor. So, since this unit has armor factor 1, it cannot have charge factor higher than 2. And if unit has armor factor 2, then its ultimate charge factor may be 3. But if unit moves and gets the charge factor 3, gets 2, and if it's changed its facing, the charge factor is zeroed. So 1, and charge factor again goes 1, and it changes facing here, and charge factor is once again zeroed. The charge factor is important in combat. It shows how mighty a unit is while charging at the enemy. Only cavalry units have charge factor. Infantry units have no charge factor at all. Finally, I think it would be the last of the cavalry movement units. Things I'd like to show you is countercharge. Countercharge is the situation when the cavalry unit of the enemy player sees our cavalry unit, and instead of staying there and waiting for the attack, it countercharges on our unit. But unit which is in the zone of control of the enemy unit cannot countercharge. So let's show how it works. For example, this unit starts its movement. It goes 1, charge factor 1, 2, charge factor 2, and 3. It cannot get a higher charge factor because it has armor factor 1. Now it's in the zone. It's one hex from this cavalry unit. So this cavalry unit would like to countercharge this unit, but it cannot, because it is in the zone of control of the enemy unit. So this Polish unit may move here as it likes and attack this infantry unit in its combat phase. Let's move to this unit. It moves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gets charge factor 1. And now this cavalry unit may countercharge. It is not in the enemy zone of control, so it moves 1. It also gets charge factor of 1, because it moved 1 hex in the straight line. Sorry. Oh. And now they may attack. They may fight with each other. Oh, I should say, countercharge, despite any other fights, is resolved instantly. In all the other situations, you have to move all your units and wait till the combat phase to resolve all these fights. But when the countercharge appears, you have to resolve it instantly, and the unit which was countercharged cannot move anymore, even if the combat was won by the countercharged unit. Let's remove this. There is one more thing which is important for cavalry movement. It is trampling friendly units. Cavalry, while moving, may move through the friendly units, friendly infantry units, and destroy them. Such situations may be odd, but it happened many times during the medieval battles. For example, during the Battle of Crécy or during the Battle of Grunwald. So, when cavalry starts its movement, it may move 1, 2, and this unit is destroyed. Of course, there is little chance player would like to do this, but there are some situations when they can. Also, you have to remember that this unit has very strict stack limits. On a single hex, you can have only one unit that has 2 SP, or 2 units with 1 SP each. You cannot have more. If you are forced to have more, then you can't move through such hex. And if unit is forced to move through such hex and it cannot, because stack limits say no, such unit is eliminated. So if you move this cavalry unit here and here, then the stack unit stack limit would be too high, and because of the trampling options, this infantry unit would be eliminated. You cannot destroy in this way enemy units and cavalry units. Only your own friendly cavalry units. Only your own friendly infantry units. I think I covered all or about 90% of the movement rules of the cavalry, of course. Now let's move to the next phase, which is attack of the cavalry of the player A. In this phase, a player who has an initiative have to attack all the enemy units that are in the zone of controls of his cavalry units. Yes, this is important thing to remember. You have to attack the enemy units that are in your zone of control. You cannot say, I don't wanna to make this attack, and no, you have. Of course, you cannot use your infantry in this phase. You have to use your cavalry only. So let's show how it works. Here, for example, this German unit is in the zone of controls of these two Polish units. But since this unit is infantry, it cannot attack now. It has to wait till its attack phase. For now, only this Polish cavalry unit may attack. Here, this Polish cavalry unit may attack freely this enemy infantry unit, because it's its attack phase, so it may attack enemy unit, this, no matter if it's cavalry or infantry. You just can't attack with your own cavalry. Here, these two German units are in the zone of controls of these three Polish units. So, Polish player may choose. He may attack this unit with this unit with this unit, or this unit with this and that. This unit hasn't attack, because this unit will be attacked by this unit. But if he wants, he may make a stronger attack with these two units. This German unit is not in this unit zone of control. As you remember, zone of control covers 3 front hexes, so it won't be attacked by anyone. Now let's move to the resolving the combat. I won't fight all of these fights. Let's make 1 or 2 fights to show you everything which is important here. Let's assume these two Polish units will attack this German unit. To resolve the combat, first we have to calculate the odds. We have 2 units, each of them has a strength factor of 2, and 1 German unit, it has strength factor of 2. This gives us 4 and 2, so we move to the combat table and get a result 2-1. But we're gonna check the modifiers next. We don't have charge factors here at all. We're gonna make it here. I'm gonna show you later how it works. But we have to calculate the armor factor now. We always take the armor factor of the strongest units of each side. For example, we have armor factor of 2 and armor factor of 1. So we will take armor factor of 2. If these both units have armor factor of 1, we would use armor factor of 1. But we have armor factor 2. Enemy has armor factor 0. So Polish player gets modifier +2. And he moves combat table from 2-1 to 3 and 4-1. We have no more modifiers in this particular combat, so we have to make a roll with 2d6 die to get a result. Let's assume I rolled 5. I rolled 5, and it means in the 4-1, 2, 3, 4, 5. b2 minus 1. It means that a defender has to withdraw 2 hexes and loses 1 strength point. So the attacked unit has to withdraw 1, 2 and flip to the 1. If it would be already 1, it would be eliminated. Attacking player may perform purchase. That's the thing I should made it. Sorry, I'm gonna make it put commander counter to show you how it works. I forgot about it. There are 2 ways of performing purchase. Unit may purchase willingly, so the Polish player may move 1, 2 and 1, because it cannot move here because of the stack limits. But let's assume Polish player doesn't want to perform this attack. So he has to check if his cavalry units are listening to him. That's one of the things that differs from the modern combat. In the medieval age, knights were not so willing to listen to their commanders, and often in the battle they charged by their own will, seeing the enemy escaping. So you have to use purchase after combat table, check the distance from the commander from 1 to 5 and make a roll. If you roll 1 with the distance 1, 1, 2 with the distance 2 and so on, unit has to purchase enemy. For example, here we have Polish commander here, and these 2 Polish cavalry units are here. Let's assume Polish player doesn't want them to purchase Germans, so he has to make a roll. This unit is in the distance 2 hexes from the commander. So Polish player has to make a roll. If he would roll 1 or 2, this unit would go in the purchase despite the player's will. Here is the distance of the 3 hexes, 1, 2, 3. So he has to roll. If he would roll 1, 2 or 3, this unit will go in the purchase no matter if he wants or not. Now let's see how the combat works with, for example, much more of the modifiers. Let's move here. This Polish unit has this German unit in its zone of control, so it has to perform an attack. Polish cavalry unit has strength of 2, just like German unit, and armor factor of 2, just like German unit as well. So it is 1 to 1. Polish unit has charge factor of 1. So it gets modified one column shift. It was 1 to 1, and now, thanks to the charge factor, we have 2 to 1. But that's not all. Germans have their banner in their zone of control. If unit has its banner in the zone of control, it gets plus or minus 1 modifier for its favor. So thanks to the banner, we have a column shift in the favor of the defender from 2 to 1 to 1, 1. And also, Germans have their commander. His command range is 1, so it means he influences all his units in the distance of 1 hexes. So this unit is in his command range, and because of that, this unit gets 1 one more column shift for its favor. So it was 1 to 1, now it is 1, 2. So the situation changed much more in the favor of the defender. Let's assume I rolled 8. I rolled 8, and 8 in the 1, 2 is A1 minus 1. This means that attacker has to retreat 1 hex and it has to lose 1 strength level. The same thing happened to the defender if he wants to purchase. He may do it willingly, just move here, or since he's 1 hex range from the commander, it doesn't have to roll. Or sorry, it has to roll because it's 1 hex. If it would be on the same hex, it wouldn't have to roll, but since it's 1 hex distance, it has to make 1 roll, and if he rolls 1, he would be and if it would roll 1, it would be forced to perform a pursuit. Finally, one last thing about combat. After the unit retreats, we have to see if it was disorganized. We have a table for that. Here we have possible results: B1, A1, B2, A2. Next we see the kinds of the units. There are for example, we have light cavalry. This means cavalry with light cavalry. This means cavalry with armor factor 0. Cavalry with armor factor 1, and heavy cavalry with armor factor 2. Here we have heavy cavalry, and it retreated 1 hex. So it doesn't have to roll, it won't be disorganized. But if it would be forced to retreat, for example, 2 hexes, and if after the retreat it would roll 1, it would be disorganized. Disorganized units are removed from the battle, from the board, and placed next to the board on this particular track. After the turn, after the start of another cavalry movement phase, such units are returning on the board on the hexes next to their own commander. What else I should say? Here we have Polish cavalry attacking German infantry. Or maybe I want one more combat to show you everything. So it has 2 strength. Germans have 1 strength, so it is 2 to 1. Polish unit has armor factor 1, so we have 1 combat shift from 2-1 to 3-1, and because of charge factor 2, we move from 3 to 5-1. And now let's assume I rolled 2 snake eyes, 1 on each of the these die. So we have result -1 B3 air. This means okay, since we covered all the cavalry rules, we can move to the infantry rules. Just like I said before, first we have cavalry movement phase, cavalry attack phase, and then we have infantry movement phase. In this phase, infantry units make their moves. As for the counters first, most of the icons and symbols are the same when it comes to both infantry and cavalry. So we have movement factor, strength factor, and armor factor. The only difference is the formation for the firing units. We have two types of the firing units: crossbowmen and archers. In these kind of units, they have two different formations: movement formation and combat formation. In the movement formation, they have an arrow on their movement side. In this formation, unit may move, but it cannot fire. If it wants to fire in the enemy movement phase, it has to be in the fire formation, like that. As you may notice, in the fire formation, it has strength 1, but movement 0. So it cannot move. It has to change formation again to move. About the movement of the infantry, it's very easy. Unit moves by spending movement points 1, 2, 3. It may move on any of its front hexes. To change its facing, it has to spend 1 additional movement point. So that's all when it comes to the movement of the infantry. Let's move to the fire. The fire is something that is mostly with infantry, because there are very few cavalry units that also can fire, and I have no game that covers this. Okay, let's assume we have such situation. These archer units are here, okay, and let's assume this infantry unit moves here on this hex. Now, this cavalry may countercharge. As you remember, it may countercharge at the approaching enemy. It moves here, gets charge factor of 1, but now it is in the range of these archers. They may fire at it. We are going to the archers' fire. We have to check the range. They are in the 2 hexes range, so we use this row, and we have to make a roll. If we roll 9 or 10, they will lose 1 SP. If we roll 11 or 12, they will lose 2 SP. So they will be eliminated instantly. But since they have 1 SP, the loss of the even 1 SP will eliminate them too. One of the important difference between archers and crossbowmen is that archers may fire freely above their own units. So, for example, if we would have such situations, these archers could still fire on this cavalry. But if this Polish unit would move here, these crossbowmen can't fire at them, because this German infantry unit blocks their line of sight. Okay, about infantry combat. It is basically the same as cavalry combat, save to the fact we don't have charge factors here. We can't destroy our own units by passing through. So I guess it won't be nothing new for you. But to show you something, let's assume we have such situation, and this let's say that combat happened. We have 1-1 here because each unit has strength factor of 1 and each unit has armor factor of 1. And let's assume we rolled 9. 9 give us A1. This means that attacker has to retreat 1 hex. In this particular situation, this unit cannot retreat. All these hexes are occupied by the friendly unit that have 2 SP. So each hex has full limit of the stack points. This unit cannot retreat here or there because these hexes are in the enemy zone of controls, and unit cannot retreat in the enemy zone of controls. So it is eliminated. After all these phases are resolved, we move to the last phase. The last phase is all about morale. Morale played an important role in the medieval battles, because when one army had a higher morale, it fought much better than the enemy. In this game, in this system, morale indicates how good the spirit of each army is. How it works. After all the phases at the end of the turn, each player counts how many units of the enemy he eliminated in this turn. And it is noted on the morale track, which is on the side of each board. So, let's assume we finished last phase and we move to the morale phase. Polish player eliminated 3 enemy units. German player eliminated 3 Polish units. And let's say this is morale for Germans and this is for Poles. So, since 3 Polish units were eliminated, and let's assume our morale basic morale level was 0, German player moves 1, 2, 3 on his favor. So he has still morale 0, no bonus. Now Polish player counts morale. He eliminated 2 German units, so the morale goes up for 2. He eliminated 1 enemy commander. For eliminating a commander, he gets 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And he captured 1 enemy banner. So for capturing banner we get 3. So 1, 2, 3. So the morale is +1 for Poles. So in the next turn, in each combat, there will be plus or minus 1 column shift in the favor of Polish player. I think it is all about morale. One more thing. We don't get morale points for the friendly units we eliminated by ourselves. So, if our cavalry unit trampled our own infantry unit, enemy won't get morale points for these eliminated units. Finally, let's talk about fatigue. Fatigue shows how units are tired of the combat. What is most important, fatigue covers only leaders who have cavalry units under their command. How to mark it? In some games it is pretty easy. For example, here we have von Ravenek, and all his units are marked as Ravenek. So we know these are all his units. In some games, a player may choose. So before the game starts, it's important to make a note who commands whom. For example, in these both Normans groups, I marked before the game that William commands all the cavalry units from 11 to 20, and Eustace all the cavalry units from 1 to 10. Then, when leader makes a move, his fatigue level rises by 1. So, for example, let's say that von Ravenek makes a move and he has already level fatigue factor 2. Because of the move, this level factor rises by 1 and now it is 3. The same thing would happen if he would not move, but if he participate in any combat during the turn. Fatigue level may rise only by 1 per turn, no more. If a leader wasn't moving or fighting during the entire turn, his fatigue level is lowered by 1. So, if this Ravenek wouldn't make a move and he wouldn't fight, his fatigue level would be lower from 3 to 2. Older games of the system are using these counters. Newer games are using turn track to check the level of the fatigue. For example, we have William here, and let's say he made a move. So we take a fatigue counter for William and we move it, we place it on 1 if it was his first move. Then we move it on 2, 3, 4 and so on. I think this way is easier and it makes us use less help counters on the board. Okay, I think it is all. Oh, by the way, last thing. One last most important thing. I would also forget about it. Okay, if fatigue has 13 levels, if 13 levels, if the fatigue level, for example, let's say he was 12 and he made a move or he was attacked and it rose to 13. If the fatigue level reaches 13, half of the units that belonged to the commander, rounding down, is disorganized. So let's assume that his fatigue level reached 13. So the half of he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units under his command. So 2 of these units are disorganized. They are moved on the disorganization track and they might return in the next turn. And he would be advised to try to lower his fatigue, of course. Okay, I think this is all. I guess there might be some minor rules that I forget, or they are special for any games, because there is a big number of these games for now. So, if you will have any questions about this system, any rules and so on, feel free to ask me in the comments or in the email. I will do my best to answer them. Thank you!